Warning: this video contains spoilers and tackles some heavy topics. Viewer discretion is advised. It's no secret that Final Fantasy IX tackles heavy themes. Most notably is the topic of life and death. Throughout the game, characters are put in positions where they think about life and have to deal with death or loss. Death isn't a new topic in video games. I'm not trying to make a meta statement about it, I'm talking from a narrative standpoint. Final Fantasy IX is focused on the topic and is able to present it in a holistic package. Meet Vivi, one of the game's characters and arguably one of the favorites. It's through him and the events around him where the game presents its take on said heavy themes. It's through this medium that the game is able to communicate its ideas really well and in turn helps in making Vivi one of the most relatable characters in the game. Here's my take on why. At the start of the game, Vivi is technically a fresh slate. He's only been around a few months before the game started. For a quick backstory, Vivi was found by a Q named Quan who took care of Vivi upon finding him. He taught Vivi many things, becoming the Black Mage's parental figure. Heck, Vivi refers to the Q as his grandpa. Sadly, Quan passed away sometime later, leaving Vivi alone. This is an important thing to note as the game already tells us that in a literal short amount of time, Vivi is already exposed to death and what it entails. Now, I don't exactly know how Vivi handled the loss. I mean, he was a bit lonely, and to some extent, it's what prompted him to see the show in Alexandria. On the other hand, in Ice Cavern, he told Steiner that his indiscretion was no big deal. So I guess it's safe to assume that Vivi has a handle on it, although a bit wistful at times like most people are. The next major event concerning Vivi would be in the village of Dali, where everything is not what it seems. On the surface, the village looks like a quaint little farming town, but underneath is a black mage manufacturing process. Why is this such a big deal? Well, I can think of 3 reasons. First, the game so far hasn't shown another black mage like Vivi, setting him up as a unique existence. Except for Black Bolt's number 1, but in my opinion, its impact can vary per player, and it has no impact on Vivi as a character since he didn't know about the fight originally. Second, the black mages are made out of mist. In the world of Final Fantasy IX, mist is the source of the monsters you fight, and has known detrimental effects to people. Lastly, he saw a similar image and figure of himself, but they were being created easily. I think it's safe to say that that would shock anyone. Take these 3 things together and it becomes a package that leads Vivi to 2 well-known paths. First is the discovery of the self, the question of who he is. And secondly, the dilemma of existentialism, the question of why am I here? These paths, for lack of a better term, will be prevalent for Vivi throughout his journey, serving as motivation or a roadblock. And things doesn't get easier for the little guy. When he finally meets a black waltz, he finds out they're jackasses. And nearly every moment where Vivi encounters a created black mage, they always acted or served a purpose that he is against. But he still perseveres, dealing with the reality that's presented to him. At the end of Disc 1, we are introduced to the main antagonist Kuja, and by Disc 2, it is inferred that Kuja is the source of the idea behind the creation of black mages. The party follows all known leads they have on the guy, bringing them to a new continent. In this new continent, the group discovers the existence of black mages, a village of them in fact. This is the first time we see Vivi surprised in a positive way, as if seeing long-lost family or friends for the very first time. Yet, despite finally seeing his fellow mages living instead of functioning, he is upset to find out that he's still a bit different from them. That is until his conversations with the wise Mr. 288. Mr. 288 would provide Vivi with the information he wants to know concerning the village. He would also be the source of a sad truth. See, during the early part of their visit, Vivi would learn that some of the black mages have stopped moving. Later, Mr. 288 would shed more light. As Mr. 288 points out, Vivi already knows about death and is asking of those that have died, not stopped. He would further disclose that their lifespan is limited and would be at most up to a year since production. Now, I think that Vivi, to some extent, has come to terms with his origins, but that doesn't mean it makes it any easier for him to deal with. Since that conversation, Vivi would be trapped in his own thoughts. This is more evident in the ATE Vivi's feelings, where we are exposed to his thoughts since the reveal. He starts to ask questions that most people want answers to. He wonders if he truly does know what it all means. He feels the initial fear of death and what it all entails. This would continue on for quite some time up until their travel to the Iifa tree, where the party tries to connect the dots between the mist, Kuja, and the Black Mages. The connection will be supplied by Soulcage, an entity in the Iifa tree that is overseeing the dispersal of mist. It would confirm to the party that Kuja is indeed using the mist to make the Black Mages. He would continue to reveal details about the mist, which incites Vivi to stop the monster from creating more mist. However, after the fight, Vivi was having some second thoughts. He didn't want to make Black Mages as weapons, but his actions stopped the creation of more Black Mages. He starts to wonder if he did the right thing, but thanks to the words of the people in the party, they were able to console Vivi and help him come to terms with the result of his actions. For the past several moments, Vivi has been dealing with death from an introspective view. He is wondering about death from his eyes and mind. Before Disc 2 ended, Vivi is given a chance to learn about death from a different perspective. In their return trip to the Iifa tree, we are shown the battle between Queen Braun and Kuja. Queen Braun loses and ends up giving her final words. In that moment, we are given a look in Vivi's thoughts, where he learns that even though he hated Braun for her hand in all that has happened, that doesn't discredit the pain felt by those affected by her death. Moving on, the third major event for Vivi will be in Disc 3 during their stay in Lindblum after the destruction of Alexandria. The party and Regent Sid discusses about recent events. However, the Regent brought up something he noticed during their evacuation from Alexandria, that Kuja was escaping on his stolen airship accompanied by normally talking Black Mages. This sets Vivi into an outburst, wanting to know why were they again with Kuja. A quick visit to the Black Mage village reveals that the other Black Mages went with Kuja because they found out about their lifespan, and that Kuja said he knew how to extend their lives. Vivi is understandably upset, knowing full well that Kuja is lying and just taking advantage of the Black Mages. He also admits to Mr. 288 and Zidane at first he was really confused about a lot of things, like the death of his grandpa or the stopping of the other Black Mages. He finally understands, he isn't confused anymore. He just feels sad, and that were he a puppet, he wouldn't have felt that way. This convinces Mr. 288 to disclose Kuja's hideout, but it's his next words that, in my opinion, is really important. I hope we can become strong like you someday. In that moment, we are affirmed about the tremendous growth in Vivi, and that to an extent, he is near if not totally reached the answer to his self-ponderings. A lot of things happen after, like the travel to Oilvert and the escape from Desert Palace. Ultimately, the party follows Kuja to Mount Gulug, where the party saves an abducted Eiko. But for Vivi, this is one of the resolutions of his journey. After the fight with this thing, Vivi appears to Zidane, telling him that the Black Mages knew Kuja was lying but followed him regardless, that the Black Mages were feeling the fear he had at the time. Despite asking Zidane what to do, I think Vivi already knew what to do, and that is to provide comfort for his brothers, to be there for them at this moment. This is such a big deal because he could have easily gone back to despairing with his fellow Black Mages. Instead, he chooses to be a quiet comfort, someone that is there for them. This shows that Vivi, to some extent, has come to terms with it all, and that frankly, this is part of the course. The final event for Vivi ends with what the game has alluded to since Disc 2. It is his death. And it's harshly ironic because it's not like the game was hiding it from us. We are exposed to his musings and hardships, and yet it feels like saying goodbye to a longtime friend. After the final dungeon, at the ending scenes of the game, we are shown a monologue from Vivi. Here he talks about the things he has learned since their travels, how he is thankful for being given the chance to think and realize who he was, how he is grateful for meeting everyone, and that he wishes he could still go on adventures with them. He ends the monologue with, "My memories will be part of the sky," signifying that even though he is physically gone, he is never forgotten, that he did exist at one point and no one can deny that. Vivi has reached the metaphorical and literal end of his journey. Vivi is such a strong character both in the literal sense and in what he represents. He is ultimately an allegory about life. We all start young, unaware, and confused. We may know what life and death is, but we don't really understand what it means to live and to die. What are the ramifications of the two? How does it affect people? the bout of existentialism we're going to experience as we grow older and more aware. A search for who we are, what we should do, and where do we fit in. Experiencing a fear of death and hopefully getting to terms with it. Being there for people when they need it. Realizing that we should live a fulfilling life. And then, at the end of the road, everyone passes away. I think what hits me the most in the end is Vivi's wishes and realizations in his monologue. I personally am not afraid of death, or at least I think I'm not. If anything, I'm afraid of leaving the people I care about so damn early and failing to achieve the things I told myself I want to do. It's selfish, I know, but I think I'm not the only one who thinks this. What I know for sure is that Vivi has cemented himself as one of the best characters in Final Fantasy history, and that it's a testament to him as a character and to what the developers of the game can do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.